Lastly, what does it mean from a marketing perspective? And this is where I always chuckle a little bit because I end up in this place where, as my wife often says, you kind of realize that marketers ruin everything. A good example would be pop-up ads on the early internet. The internet was once free of the marketing mess that pop-up ads are, and they worked so well, unfortunately, that marketers had to go ahead and flood the internet with them until we had pop-up ad blockers. And of course, you can't really defend yourself from pop-ups on websites, and oftentimes that is still being used very effectively, which is why we still see, exit intent pop-ups and things like that. But one can also remember a time when social media feeds weren't 75% ads or 75% promotions, and you can thank marketers for that one too. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the AI Marketing Navigator. This is your daily compass in the ever-evolving world of AI marketing. Okay, navigators, tonight we are talking about a relatively new concept in the lifespan of AI technology, but roughly a year old now at this point, and that is quote-unquote memory features being integrated and built into these large language models. So let me specify a bit what I mean by memory. Of course, we've talked about things like context windows on this show before, which is essentially a set number of tokens or an amount of data that a model can store in a given session or in its quote unquote memory. And I've referred to it kind of as the short term memory of a model. But starting in 2024 with OpenAI's ChatGPT model, companies have been testing out applying memory across multiple sessions. So in the ChatGPT implementation, which again was introduced as memory in 2024, ChatGPT is going to essentially pick up your preferences from your conversations, whether it's what languages you code in, what food you are most interested in, what type of formats your notes usually take, or any endless amount of personalized ways that you use the tool. And then they're able to apply that knowledge and that context to your future tasks and your future conversations. We also talked about custom instructions in ChatGPT in a past episode, which kind of allows you to apply general behavior or tone, in some sense, a global memory to your ChatGPT instance. And Gemini has an opt-in controlled memory functionality, which does very much the same thing. It remembers preferences like dietary restrictions or workouts. Again, my mind continues just to rattle off the very basic, obvious use cases for many of these tools. And in both cases, cut here. ChatGPT and Gemini, there are some safeguards for storing data and deleting it and reviewing it, opting out of the memory features temporarily, all those things. But what actually prompted me to want to record this AI memory episode was a more recent announcement from MetaAI, and it was discussed in today's rundown.ai newsletter, that they are introducing quote unquote memory boost and social media integration. So MetaAI Assistant is also going to start storing your user preferences now across chats, but more importantly, across your social media data. It's going to be able to pull in all of that data as well. And as we all know, Meta has a boatload of data, and there has been no shortage of controversy around how that boatload has been managed in the past. And that controversy and scandal has kind of included with this announcement. And we'll talk about that in a second. But as far as true personalization goes, and as far as an assistant that knows everything about you, I don't think anybody is going to be able to compete with Meta in that realm, especially for potential users who have been on there for 20 years or what have you. So yes, the one-on-one chats are going to help shape preferences here with Meta AI, but the Facebook and the Instagram profile data as well, things like your location and things you have viewed, events you've been going to, your content, all of these things will be used to make the assistant more helpful and more personalized. And I want to talk about in a second what that actually means from a few different angles and through a few different lenses, or what it could mean at least. But first, as far as the user controls and the data privacy go on the Meta AI personalization or memory boost, again, as I mentioned, they have already started to rock the boat, which is surprising considering their past scandals, which the rundown.ai newsletter mentions, in that there is not an explicit way to opt out of this personalization and data sharing. So take that as you will, but I certainly don't think it's going to win them any fans, and you have to wonder about the judgment on that call for sure. Now, let's talk a little bit about what it means when these already incredible PhD level assistants in our pockets now know everything about us. And one can imagine how much better that contextual awareness and that ability to compile and curate that preference data is going to get over time. And the implications are kind of staggering in a few different ways to me. First, something we talk about so much on the show are the implications for AI adoption. And this would be, once again, another huge step forward and a huge step up in the overall impact that one of these tools or one of these platforms is going to have on a first time user or a non-power user versus someone who has been deep in the weeds and prompts with these tools regularly, who recognizes the value and has had their aha moments. But there are still so many who have not. And you have to see the potential, especially for Meta AI with its huge user base, to really flip some AI switches in people's brains and spark some aha moments, especially if this personalization feature ends up improving the user experience as much as I think it possibly could. So we have the user experience for the light users and the non-power users, but what about the power users? If you're using these tools in a business sense or in a personal sense on a daily and deep level, obviously, the more context and the more global memory the model has about you and your life and why you make the decisions you do, whether they're business decisions or why you prefer to do business the way that you do, or your marketing or your brand, all of these things. If it can remember that type of context, you can see the enhancement and the boost that that would give to your personal assistant. Lastly, what does it mean from a marketing perspective? And this is where I always chuckle a little bit because I end up in this place where, as my wife often says, you kind of realize that marketers ruin everything. You know, a good example would be pop-up ads on the early internet. The internet was once free of the marketing mess that pop-up ads are, and they worked so well, unfortunately, that marketers had to go ahead and flood the internet with them until we had pop-up ad blockers. And of course, you can't really defend yourself from pop-ups on websites, and oftentimes that is still being used very effectively, which is why we still see, exit intent pop-ups and things like that. But one can also remember a time when social media feeds weren't 75% ads or 75% promotions. And you can thank marketers for that one too. Of course, the platforms do bear a little bit of responsibility in that case, but the marketers are all too willing to spend that money. Anyway, there will always be bad actors, unfortunately, and marketing is no different. So you can see how this next level of personalization could be very useful to us as marketers if you are a good actor and a white hat marketer. If your goal is to truly help and to provide true value to your prospects and your customers, and what you're offering is not spammy or invasive, and there will be good ways to use this level of personalization in your marketing. On the other hand, these models could sell this personalization data, and maybe marketers are going to use it in the future to advertise in ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, what have you. And this memory and preference context and global awareness is all just really the beginning, like ads were for social media feeds and promoted results were for search engine pages, the beginning of the end created by marketers. So, AI memory, personalization paradise, or marketing mess? You guys tell me. Okay, that does it for today's episode. If you enjoyed the show or found it useful in any way, please do me a favor and follow on Spotify or subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. A review on top of that would be even more appreciated and is so super helpful to the show. Also, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you get notified each day when our episode drops. Until then, and as always, thank you for joining me, and remember to stay curious, stay consistent, and keep navigating forward. Bye.